Hey everyone, so somebody had asked me if I could make a quick little video on how to pour the resin in the sacred geometry molds that I had made in a previous video. So I am going to go ahead and show you guys how to do that real quickly. And the only thing that I won't be able to show you is what it looks like when they're done. I do have a couple I can show you that I've already made, but I won't be able to because the resin takes 24 hours to cure, and obviously I'm not going to be able to show you that right away. But here we go. So this is glow-in-the-dark resin, which I'm going to pour a little bit inside the resin. That's a little bit too much, but you just want to take a little bit, and this is a little bit of resin that I have in a cup that I previously already mixed up. Actually, I'll just go ahead and pour that all in there. And you're just going to mix your powder in there, and you want to stir pretty gently because you don't want to have a bunch of bubbles in your resin when you're going to put it inside these little sacred geometry insert molds. Because what happens is, and now that I'm looking, I already have a bunch of bubbles, but what happens is when you have bubbles in there, they're really hard to get out because it's small, detailed space. So the bubbles can be a little bit difficult in these. The hardest part of this is getting the resin to get inside the molds without having it bleed over the sides. And I'll kind of show you as I go what I mean by that. So after it's all mixed pretty well, you don't want any clumps in there or anything. You're just gonna take your mold and use your stick and just gently drip. You don't want to put a lot. And I just like take a couple little drips and then I just spread it around like this. And then just make sure it gets in all the little cracks. And less is better than more, because if you use a bunch of resin, it will just end up being too much and you won't have your, the resin will be off, filling in the sides where you don't want it to fill in. And I'll show you examples of that. It's hard to explain unless you're looking at a piece that I mean. So it's pretty much that's all you do and to fill it in. And then just make sure there's no bubbles, and you can either do that by using a straw, blowing it all out, or where's my little lighter? I don't know where to do with my lighter. Let me see. Here it is. You can take a big, long big lighter like this, and then just gently take the heat over it. Real gently. You don't want to get too close because it will, these molds, I believe, can light on fire, which you don't want to burn your mold. So I'll go ahead and do another one for you to see. And sometimes when I see that the bubbles are coming to the top of the resin, I will just take my lighter and try to get as much of them out as I can. Because for this part, you really just, like I said, you really just don't want those bubbles in there. But just a little bit of resin and you just drip it all around. Just like that. This can be hard, and I'll show you why. And in my previous video on how to make these molds, I explained that it's much easier to work with bigger sacred geometry stencils or charms than smaller ones. They turn out a lot better. I'll try to see if I can get some examples up to show you. So then you just kind of burn all the bubbles off. Make sure, see how there's one little hole right there that I missed? Just make sure you don't have little holes like that, because of course it won't turn out right. But sometimes if I feel like there's too much resin on there, I'll take my stick and just kind of drag it across to get the excess resin off so that you know what I mean, so that there's not too much resin bleeding over the edges. And that will help as well. So these two that I just made, I have an examples to show you. A couple examples to show you guys. I gotta wipe my hands. I should have gloves on. You probably want to wear gloves when you're doing this because it does tend to get on your hands a little bit. But this is an example of this one here, and this is a good example to show you what I mean when the resin bleeds over the edges. See how it, I used too much resin and it gets all around the edges, and then it of course doesn't look pretty. So that is the most difficult part in doing this, is trying to get the resin not to bleed over the edges. Now if I would have stuck the mold in a little deeper, like or the stencil, when I pushed it into the mold, it might have been a little better so that I wouldn't have gotten it like that. But to avoid that happening, that's what I mean when I take this stick and scrape the resin like that. That's a good way to avoid that happening. So it still remains in the cracks, in the stencil cracks of the design, but it comes off the excess top where you don't want it. So that should be good. And then this one turned out nicely here. This one turned out really good. And this one's actually thicker, so I think that's why it turned out so well. It's a little bit thicker than this one, as you can see. So the thicker the better. If you can get thicker stencils or thicker charms, that definitely does pay off. But yeah, this one turned out nice, and I'm going to put this in a pendant pretty soon. This little tree one does turn out nice too. I made a tree one. I don't know where it is, but I'll go ahead and do one more for you. See how much time I've got left on this video. Got a few more minutes, so I'll go ahead and do this tree one. Just dip it all in there. This one's nice and thick too, and that's probably why this one turns out good, because of the thickness of it. Sorry for that noise in the background. It's my dog snoring. I don't know if you I don't know if you guys can hear that, but yeah, it's my dog. So I'll go ahead and do this one as well. These ones are really small, so these are my biggest challenge, is these little Seed of Lives. I totally love them because they're such a perfect size to put in my pendants, but they're so difficult to make. So gosh, my dog's really snoring loud. Hopefully it's not catching too much on the camera. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'll just take my lighter again, burn it out, and I don't know where I put my other samples. To show you guys. Darn, I wish I got them out before the video, but I apologize. I don't have my other samples on hand right now to show you what they look like. Oh wait, I found them, yay. So I had made, here's the Tree of Life, what the Tree of Life looks like when it comes out of the mold. And you know, when you do have a little bit of the resin overlaying, I don't know how to say it, but you know what I mean. You can use a stick or a toothpick and just, or even like, I'll take like a piece of wire left over from my Orgones and just do this and just kind of scrape out all that excess stuff and get into the little cracks, and then it'll take it out, because it's not like it's, you know, hard resin or something. But yeah, that's what the Tree of Life looks like. So there's those three, and then I think I also have a little Seed of Life that I can show you as well. Let's see. My Seed of Lives, though, they don't look so great. are so small. So yeah, this is what the Seed of Life turns out like all the time because the resin goes over the top because it's so small. But this one, I did take the wire and push all the resin out of it. So this one's not so bad. There were some bubble problems there, but anyway, that is how you do it. And I hope that helps you guys. And if you have any questions or need me to make another video explanation, just feel free to let me know. Thanks for watching.